Okay, so we're going to get into the basics of resilience now, and Betty's going to be sharing some information with us. But I picked out this picture because I have a thing for weather and storms, and I loved this quote that not all storms come to disrupt your life, some come to clear your path. And so now I'm going to turn it over to Betty.
All righty. Thank you so much, Melissa. Did anybody else want to share anything about their groups that they shared in groups before we get started? Anybody else want to share?
I was just going to say it was nice to meet the girls in our group, and I think we both have similar, like we wanted to do it because sometimes in this position you lose sight of resilient. You want to know, okay, I can change this, or I can help this child see that, look, you can overcome this, you can move forward, we can work through this, and then look at the successes in it. And we're hoping to learn something from the resilience factor to kind of help us, in our own lives, but also motivate us to kind of take a deep breath and use it in our positions to help others.
Well, thank you so much for sharing. I appreciate you all sharing and your perspective, and I hope with what we provide, not just today, but in coming sessions, that you all can build on your own resilience and then help others build on theirs. So let's go rafting. So imagine you're going on a rafting trip. You're going on a trip, you're on a raft. And on this rafting trip, there's going to be some slow water, but your map shows that there's going to be some turns and some rapids, and you're not going to be able to avoid those by looking at your map. In the chat, answer this question. How would you make sure you can safely cross the rough waters and handle any unexpected problems that come from the challenge? It could be one word, it could be several words. So put that in the chat, or you can come off mute and answer. Paddle hard, patience, train. Learn to paddle as a team, pray. That's what I'd be doing. Talk with raft mates. Wear a helmet. Yes. Patience, teamwork. Just keep swimming. Yes, Andrea. Yes. Yes. Lots of great answers. Lots of great answers. Anybody else want to add anything? So some of you talked about enlisting the support of others and talking with experienced rafters as you plan for this rafting trip. And you're relying on maybe companionship of trusted friends that you just trust to be in the raft with you. Maybe you could pack an extra life jacket or even consider getting a stronger raft. With the right tools in place and supports in place, one thing is for sure, you will not only make it through the challenge of this rafting adventure, but you also become more confident and become a more courageous rafter. Thank you all for sharing. All right, next slide. So looking at this map, we realize that our life, it doesn't come with a map, and everybody experiences those twists and turns and those rough waters. And it could be from an everyday challenge like, maybe somebody said something not so kind to you, to maybe a death of a loved one, a serious illness, or maybe even a life-altering accident. And as I'm talking about this, think about your life, but think about your students and families' lives too. So each of these changes that happen in our lives, or our students or families' lives, they affect people differently. with those changes, we often get these unique floods of thoughts. We have these strong emotions. And then we have this word called uncertainty. And think about the havoc that that plays on us as a person, as a human. Now, think about some of the things that you've gone through as a person, and think about generally how well you've adapted to some of those changes or some of those stressful events. You can thank that in part to resilience. Okay, next slide, please. So, resilience. Let's talk about defining resilience. The author talks about resilience, the ability to persevere and adapt when things go wrong. Go away. Sorry, they go away. So think about that for just a moment. Think about that definition. Think about a time when you had to be resilient, or maybe the people in your life have had to be resilient. So psychologists define resilience as the process of adapting well in the face of adversity, a trauma, tragedy, threats, or a significant source of stress. And that could be family and relationship problems. It could be serious health problems. It could be workplace problems. It could be financial stressors. As much as resilience involves bouncing back, because we hear that a lot with resilience, bouncing back from these difficult experiences, it can also involve profound personal growth. So with these adverse events, much like rough river waters, they are certainly painful and they are difficult, but they don't have to determine the outcome of your life. There are many aspects of life you can control, you can modify, and you can grow with. So that is the role of resilience. What they found is becoming more resilient not only helps you get through difficult circumstances, but it gives you this power. It kind of empowers you to grow, and it even improve your life along the way. So I love this. Resilient people inspire us. They soar in spite of hardships and trauma they face. And that was in the book. One of the authors talked about this. So that is what we hope you will find by participating in this community of practice, some strategies and some tools to be more resilient. All right, next slide, please. Resilient people. We're going to do an activity. How many times have you heard someone say, or have you said, oh my goodness, wow, that person is so resilient? Think about a person you know, or maybe think about yourself. Think about a student you've worked with. Think about a family you've worked with. And think about what stands out to you that makes them resilient. We're going to do a sticky note exercise, and you can put what describes that person as being resilient on that sticky note. So one person per sticky note, and you can just put all the wonderful things that you can find about yourself, others, students, families, that you feel made them a resilient person.
And have put the link in the chat to
Okay.
the sticky notes there.
All right, determination. bravery, perseverance, humor. I have a person in mind when I think about humor and resilience. Positivity. Let's see. Keep going with the flow, determination, positive thinking, humor, action, stick-to-itness. I like that one. Brave, action. Learn, yeah. Fearless fighter, self-awareness. These are all so good. Positive attitude, determination, doesn't give up, positive attitude, determination, creativity, good one, follow through, problem solver, confidence, calmness, dependable, continues to help others, very good, willing to learn, never giving up or giving in. These are so good. Able to rally everyone, continues to help others as they are dealing with issues. Wow, it's really good. Yeah. Leadership, adapting, fearless, patience. Ooh, that's a good one. These are all very good. Belief system. Knowing when to ask for help. Oh, that's such a good one. Oh, how many of us often don't do that? Pride. Never giving up. Willing. Willing to feel hurt. Oh gosh, yes. And yeah, fear. Willing to, yeah. Somebody put fearless and then another person put willing to feel hurt and fear. These are great. Vulnerable. Faith. Anybody else want to add any more that you can think of? Okay. All right. Thank you all so much for sharing. I appreciate that. Would anybody like to expand on anything that they wrote or talk about a time when they worked with somebody that was really resilient? Maybe they had to go through something that they found resilience that they didn't know they had.
Oh, and my
Else-
husband is so resilient. He can, I mean, he has just had some horrible breaks in life, but he's also the most optimistic person I know. Every once in a while, it drives me crazy because I'm like, why do you think that's going to turn out so good like that? But it's just how he functions. He just, one thing that drives me crazy is like he always thinks every project is going to be cheaper and take less time than it's actually going to take. And I had to learn that that's his optimism. He thinks that everything's going to go absolutely the best possible way it could go. And then when it doesn't, though, he just keeps on. It's like it doesn't upset him. It doesn't, to me, so that's why those are so linked to me, is because that's how I see his resilience showing, it's interesting when you really see it in action. It's a good
Love
thing.
that. That's very inspirational. Thank you for sharing that. And to live with someone like that, that's very important. I would have to say that's how my husband is too. He always sees the glass half full, which makes it nice because sometimes I don't.
I'm a little bit more realistic, I think, than he
Yeah,
is, but he would say it's more pessimistic. He would be like, why do you think that?
No, I get it. Thank you for sharing. Kathleen, did you have something to add?
I do. I had the pleasure of listening to Taylor Reynolds' mother, Talora speak last Friday. And I have I know a lot of you have heard her story. I hope you have. Her resilience and how she has navigated the feeling of her heartbreak and her loss. And when I think of how she immediately she had to feel what she felt and then she had to put it into action. And that's kind of what helped her through her grief. And I've just never met someone so resilient, living with such purpose. And how she said, it doesn't mean that she's happy at times. I mean, she has moments of feeling happy, but how she has navigated the loss of her daughter. I've talked about her so much because I feel like everyone should hear her story.
Thank you so much for sharing. Anybody else?
I would say one thing, the resilience is kind of hard for me to, there's pros and cons to how I view resilience, because sometimes it's so trauma informed that it's not healthy. But I think that when most people, I think that with the students at this age, they are not as resilient because, we were growing up, when I say we, I mean everybody on here other than 30, we we had to endure stuff. Your parents say, oh, stay outside until the lights come on, or you hurt yourself on the bike, you all right. You just dealt with so many adversities. And now these kids really don't deal with much adversities. I mean, don't get me wrong, you always deal with death, you deal with things like that. But me working at a high school specifically, resilience builds tolerance. I mean, so when they're used to, if something doesn't go their way, or okay, give it to them instantly. That's not building resilience. It's actually building it's not really. So I see a different side of resilience. I don't think that a lot of our students deal with resiliency, and I think it's a unfortunate thing, because I do feel like resiliency, it does help with a lot of things once you become adult. So one little thing that doesn't go right, it flips your whole world upside down. And so we kind of got to get back into the team, especially us who are used to those things as growing up. We can't treat our kids the same as we were taught, so even just trying to gain and understanding that it's something that they need. Anyway, it's just kind of, I see it in a different light too. We don't have a lot of kids that are resilient. growing up.
Thank you so much for sharing. Those are great points. I appreciate that. Would anyone else like to share? All right. Thank you so much for your thoughts and for being so thoughtful when you're writing on those sticky notes. That really helps build on what we're going to be talking about as we read the book and as we go through the community of practice. All right. Next slide, please. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about resilient people. And we have been, so some of these might be repetitive. But this is what the authors was talking about in the book. So I pulled from different chapters about what they said resilient people, what they looked like. So let's look at it. Resilient people understand that failures aren't their endpoint. So failures aren't your endpoint. They don't feel shame when they fail. They derive meaning from failure. And they rate high on self-efficacy. Let's look at some more resilient people. Resilient people find meaning and purpose in their life. Resilient people are optimistic, but not always, like Kathleen said. We're going to talk a little bit about what resilience isn't either. Are able to monitor and regulate their emotions and monitor the emotional states of others. Okay. Have a deeply held belief in their ability to control the outcomes of their lives. They're good at assessing risks. Have strong connections to others, and they know themselves well. All right. So that sounds like that if a person has resilience, they're perfect, but that's not the case. So we're going to talk a little bit about what resilience is not. So you might look at the list of the list that we talked about, talking about resilient people, and say, that sounds like me. That sounds a little like me, or some of that doesn't sound like me at all. So I love what one of the authors said about resilience. Resilience is a continuum. No matter where you fall, you can increase your ability to rise to tomorrow's challenges. So we've defined resiliency, and we've talked a little bit about what resilient people look like. Now let's talk about what resilience isn't. Being resilient doesn't mean that a person won't experience difficulty or distress or unhappiness. People who have suffered major adversity or trauma in their lives commonly experience emotional pain and stress. And I think that's all of us, correct? We've all experienced that. In fact, the road to resilience is likely to involve, this is really important, considerable emotional distress. So as you grow, there's going to be some distress. It's not going to be comfortable. Growth is never comfortable. While certain factors make some individuals more resilient than others, resilience isn't necessarily a personality trait that some people possess. On the contrary, this is really important, resilience involves behaviors, thoughts, and actions that anyone can learn and develop. The ability to learn resilience is one reason research has shown that resilience is ordinary and not extraordinary. Okay, let's look more about what resilience isn't. Next slide. Okay. This is the key points to know with what resilience isn't. So the number one roadblock to resilience isn't genetics. So if your parents if they weren't born with a lot of resilience, you can't say, well, my mom and dad didn't have it, so I probably won't have any resilience. So you can't blame it on them. Resilience isn't genetically fixed. Resilience is under our control. That gives me hope. How about you all? Because I like to build on my resilience every day. It isn't childhood experiences, although that impacts some things, but resilience isn't childhood experiences. It isn't your lack of opportunity, and it isn't tied to your bank account. So all of those things give me great hope. I don't know about you all. Okay. All right, so let's look at building resilience. The authors have highlighted 7 major factors that contribute to the development and strengthening of resilience. So our next COP, it's my understanding, will measure our level of resilience with our resilience quotient test, and then we'll look at our strengths and our weaknesses. And then, like building a muscle, increasing your resilience will take time and intentionality. So focusing on 4 core components: connection, wellness, healthy thinking, and meaning can empower all of us to withstand and learn from difficult and traumatic experiences. Today, I want to leave you with some quick pointers that discuss connection, wellness, healthy thinking, and meaning. The first thing we're going to talk about a little bit is about healthy thoughts and thinking. So this book really focuses on your cognitive style. So what does that mean? It simply means how you think. The book discusses in depth 8 common thinking traps that we fall into. And it gives you simple questions to avoid those thinking traps. So I like what the author says in this passage: when adversity strikes, our thinking styles bias and color our viewpoint. How many times has that happened to you? Happens to me, I think, every day. Leading us to develop patterns of behaviors that are often, listen to this big word, 2 words, compound word, self-defeating. How can you increase resilience? Learning to understand your thinking styles and developing skills to circumvent them so you can see the true causes of adversity and its effect on your life. Remember, you're working with thinking styles that you have developed over a lifetime. You didn't just all of a sudden start thinking a certain way, correct? You've developed these thinking styles over a lifetime. Another one of my favorite passages in the book is non-resilient thinking styles can lead us to cling to inaccurate beliefs about the world and to the inappropriate problem-solving strategies that burn through emotional energy and valuable resilient resources. So let's go back to our thinking style and those self-defeating behaviors. Now I'm heading down a rabbit hole, so come travel with me down this little rabbit hole. Has anyone ever heard of Louise Hay? Okay, so she lived to be 90. She has passed, but she was a motivational author, and she really believed in the power of positive thinking. You can find her on YouTube. I think she's even making her rounds on TikTok these days. So Louise Hay says the first step in loving yourself is to become more self-aware and to stop criticizing yourself. Next time you look in the mirror, don't look for something wrong. Look for something right. Don't say, oh my gosh, look at these wrinkles. Oh my gosh, my nose is so big. Find something right. When you stop criticizing yourself, chances are you stop being critical of others. Think about that. So in the chat, or you can come off chat and say this out loud, because that's even more affirmative in my mind. How many times have we been asked to say something nice about somebody? I'd like for somebody to offer an affirmation to somebody. I want you to say something nice about yourself in the chat. It could be something you did, something kind you did for somebody. It could be just your behavior. It could be a personality trait. And it doesn't surprise me that nobody's doing this yet, because it's really hard to find positives with ourselves. Say something kind about yourself. I am thoughtful. Thank you, Lisa. I have pretty eyes. Yes, you do. And Lisa is very thoughtful. Yes. And I don't have to say yes to all these. Yes, you are, Sally. And you are encouraging. Yes. I am very loyal. Sarah, yes. I'm an encourager. Yes. I'm a hard worker. I am caring. I am patient. I am thoughtful. And you can put more than one. I am helpful and a hard worker. Yes. I am considerate. I care about others than I do myself. Yes. I am empathic. I value people's differences. Yes. I'm a great listener. Yes. I value people's, okay, got all these. All these are great. Yes, these are all wonderful. Keep going. I'm a safe place. I know when to take care of me. Oh, what a great trait. Great. Yes. This is awesome. Keep going. You got a lot of goodness in you. Find some more stuff about you. When I was in I'm good at listening at people's stories. Yes, you are, Sally. You've listened to a few of mine. Thank you. I'm sorry. I'm dependable. I search for the good in any situation. This you do, Kathleen. I know that about you. I'm organized. Yes. Okay. I appreciate that. Thank you. Try to do that every day if you can. Say something nice about yourself to yourself. Let me check one more thing here. I am very passionate. Thank you. All right. Louise Hayes talks further about one idle thought. You know, one idle thought, it doesn't make much of a difference, does it? You have a little thought here or there, like a little negative thought. But thoughts are like drops of water, she says. You drop a drop of water on a table and it doesn't mean much. But if you keep dropping and keep dropping and you keep dropping, you get a puddle. And then you get a pond. And then you get a lake. And then you get an ocean. And if those thoughts are negative, we can drown in a sea of negativity. So think about that the opposite way. If you say positive things, and you could drown in a sea of goodness. So if you don't hear one thing today, please hear that building resilience is tied up in how you think. Thoughts affect your feelings and your behavior. We're going to talk about connection now. The next slide, please. And we're going to watch a brief little video clip. I think it's about 5 minutes long.
Sorry, bear with me on the technology piece.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Melissa.
I've got to get to the link. So just 1 second. Okay. And Betty, if you'll give me a thumbs up when I start playing this, make sure it's good.
Feel like you are
Okay.
climbing a mountain every day, and every day you get up and the same mountain is ahead of you. My wee girl Abby, who was 12 at the time, hopped in the car with her best friend Ella and Ella's mum, who was also a really dear friend of mine. And on the way down, a driver sped straight through a stop sign, crashed into them and killed all three of them. So I just have this peculiar insight, really, that, you know, I've done the academic study, I've trawled over all of the research, and then I've had to really test what works in a really, obviously, horrifically personal way. And I can say that I feel really lucky now, because having had that training, I did at least have some tools at my fingertips. But I want to make a really important point here, that too often people focus on resilience thinking it's just a personal thing, and actually we know that it's much, much bigger than that. Not seeing yourself represented in society is potentially damaging for your resilience, whether it's race, sexuality, ability, mental illness, any form of prejudice like that, that feeling that you don't belong, you're not seen and you're not heard, is hurtful and reductive when it comes to resilience. So why is it important for a country to be resilient? Because it enables us to mobilise our resources faster. And in that, I mean everything from portaloos to trust. Think about our ever-changing environments that we know we all live in nowadays. Bushfires, COVID, the earthquakes, you know, change and adversity come thick and fast, and resilient societies, resilient nations are so much better able to respond in that time, to be able to protect their weak, their vulnerable, to be able to protect the economy, to weather whatever comes in a much better way. So on that personal perspective, the good news is that research shows that resilience really requires what we call ordinary magic. It's not some elusive trait that is only available to a few. We can teach people to be more resilient. The three strategies that I relied on when the girls died, and to be fair, I absolutely still rely on now, I've wheeled them all out again recently, are the number one is understand that suffering is part of life, whether it is divorce or redundancy, losing a partner. Really tough things happen to us all. So knowing that, going into this terrible experience, knowing that adversity was common and that suffering was common, really did make a difference, because it prevented me from feeling singled out. Number two, tune into the good. We get sucked into what we call in psychology a negativity bias. You know, we're really good humans at looking at all the crappy bits, but actually we're not so good at tuning into the good stuff. And it's really, really important for us to counterbalance that by choosing to focus our attention on some of the good stuff. And resilient people are really careful to choose where they focus their attention. Number three, ask yourself, is this helping or harming me? Is the way I'm thinking, is the way I'm acting right now helping or harming me in my quest to get through this? All too often, people think that resilience is about that good old stiff upper lip. And it's not that at all. Actually, being resilient is also being able to accept your vulnerabilities, knowing when you need to get help and to reach out. Studies have shown that having strong supportive relationships is probably the most important thing we can do to build resilience. We were really lucky. We had a really supportive community who helped us, and all of this is what you need when you navigate trauma and adversity. Nobody goes it alone, and one of the key researchers in the field, Chris Peterson, used to say, other people matter. That was the 3-word summary of his decades of research.
So with that connection piece, I know when we were going through the pandemic, think about how isolated you might have felt, or others in your life felt, or your kids or your grandkids, or the students that you worked with. We need that human connection to build resilience, and helping others and asking for help is so important in building that resiliency. Okay. The next thing we're going to talk about is wellness. And boy, you hear a lot about this. Miriam Silman, who we've referenced a few times in this, she likes to say self-aware instead of self-care. And I love when she says that. And with wellness, we know it's important to care for your physical body. You can use mindfulness. You can avoid those negative outlets. There's all kinds of mindfulness strategies, meditation, progressive muscle relaxation, mindful walking. How many people have ever tried mindful eating? Yeah. How many times do you chew food when you're eating? Like, if you've been like me before, I've sat down to have a few, let's say, potato chips or snacks, and I look around and, well, the bag's not full anymore. Let's say it that way. So, mindful walking is another thing that I do. I try to practice that, and it's just kind of clearing your mind. I think that's very helpful, but taking care of your body physically too is important. And finally, the last topic I wanted to discuss is just meaning. Meaning. Discovering who you are. Who are you? Who have I become? Are you a helper? If you have to be a helper to be on this call, probably, because you're in that role. So helping others, be proactive and make and work toward goals for yourself. Help the families you work with find meaning. Help the students you work with find meaning to build resilience. The authors speak about resilient people who live broad lives. They have found meaning in their endeavors and are appreciative of their experiences, good and bad, because that's who's made us who we are. Reaching out is risky. Meeting new people can be hard. Trying new things can take a lot of courage and often come with embarrassment, rejection, or failure. And in chapter 13, the authors discuss resilience for life, and it looks in depth at meaning. And that was a very helpful chapter for me when I was reading the book. Okay, we're going to take a look at our 4 things that we've been talking about. We're gonna think about healthy thinking, connection, wellness, and meaning. And all of those are at the bottom. And then the things above them are ways that you can build on resilience by using healthy thinking, by using connection, by using wellness, and by using meaning. So, Melissa, do you want to go ahead and once again, you don't have to share if you don't like, but if you would like to share maybe a strategy or a tool you'd like to try in building resilience, please feel free to hop off mute, easy for me to say, and share with us.
I'm not going to call out my group mates, but I think our commonality for us was wellness and connection. We tend to struggle with those two the most, and feel like we do pretty well in the other two areas. But I think a lot of times we don't like to accept help. We don't want to be burdens to everybody else. We don't care for our own physical bodies. We will go above and beyond for everyone and everything around us before we actually think about ourselves. And those negative outlets, we tend to sink back into those a lot more than we'd like to admit at times. But just remembering that we tell everybody day in and day out that, give grace. You have a village around you. Surround yourself with your village, build it. But we don't do that enough for ourselves. And we don't listen to those own words that we speak to. And one of them say, if we use our self-talk and our negative thoughts, would we continue to have the same relationships that we do if we used what we say to ourselves to somebody else? It would greatly impact our relationships.
Thank you so much for sharing. Oh my goodness, that is so impactful. Thank you. Appreciate that. Anyone else? All right. With that being said, I'm going to turn it over to Melissa. I appreciate you all so much, and you're going to hear a little bit more about what's happening in the weeks to come. Thank you so much.
All right. Yeah, we've got some closing items, a little housekeeping to take care of. But first, I want to ask Russell if he can tell us a little bit about what's going to be happening at our next session. That is going to be on May 9th. Is our next session, and we're going to be using the same link that we used here, but I'll send out reminders to everybody. So Russell, you want to talk a little bit about what we're going to be working on at our next session? Absolutely.
Thank you, Melissa. So in the next session, we're going to dive into the book just a little. So again, it's great if you can read the book, but if you're not able to, if everything gets crazy, because I know y'all are coming up on the testing window and school's going to get nuts and it's going to just be wild. If you can't get to the book, if you can't get to everything, it's okay. Please still join us and we'll give you all the information you need to know. But next week, if you really want to kind of follow along where we are, we're going to kind of look at the first section, the first 3 chapters of the book. And we're going to take a little quiz and we're going to have some fun with it during the next session. We're going to give you a few things. It's actually, I know when you say take a test, people say, yep, I'm out, I'm done. But it actually is a lot of fun. And we're going to see kind of where we are and do a self-assessment of ourselves with where we are with resiliency. Teresa, am I forgetting anything?
Nope, that's everything that I had written down as well.
Excellent. It is fun. I don't know if you guys have flipped through that little quiz. I always like those, learn a little bit about yourself by taking the quiz. So please join us on May 9th. Now for this session, we do have an exit survey. Assessment is really important to us and feedback is very important. That's how we make things better. And so I've got a QR code on the screen if you have a phone. I'm also going to drop the direct link into the chat if you would rather go that route. Yeah, Teen Beat magazine for sure. Which Osmond do you like best? No, that might be a little way too far back. They may not even had quizzes back then, but that's what I think about when I think about Teen Beat. But anyway, we do have this exit slip. It is anonymous, and we just really do want to get some of your impressions and your feedback from our first session. So I would encourage you to fill that out when you get the opportunity. The next thing that I am going to put into the chat is the PD approval code for this one session. This has been approved for 2 hours of professional development. You know, we're right here at the end of when you can actually earn, you know, professional development hours. And so this might be useful to you guys. So that is there in the chat as well. The last thing that we have on our notes is a resource, because some of the discussions might have brought up some feelings. You might feel like you want to reach out and talk to someone about that. Betty and I are absolutely willing to listen. You know, if you want to reach out to one of us about some of the things we talked about today, but we also wanted to share this 800 number. I'm assuming that's a toll-free number. Is 855 toll-free? Yes. So this is the Kentucky Counseling Center phone number. And what these folks can do is direct you to resources in your own community. Saying all that, I know you probably know all the resources in the community. You guys are so amazing at that, but we did want to bring this to your attention in case you felt like you wanted to go talk to somebody. If you needed to, you know, reach out and have discussions with a professional, this would be a place that you could go to get that help. They'll connect you with somebody in your area. Betty, do you want to say anything else about that?
No, just if you have any concerns, or if you just need to chat, just contact Melissa and I, and we're happy to talk with you.
Absolutely. And we are now to the end of our formal presentation. We do want to open it up for any questions or comments or anything else. We appreciate you guys being here today and starting this journey with us.